Now we're honored to have U.S. Senator Roy Blunt with us on the phone. And Senator, Merry Christmas to you.
Well, Mark, it's good to be with you, and I heard that reaction that you played earlier, just a few minutes ago, somebody's reaction to the Trump election. I'm sure that was not reflective of your reaction, and I've got to tell you, I'm more optimistic every day that things can happen that would likely not have had a chance to happen otherwise. I think the president-elect, who I had a chance to talk to yesterday on the phone, he just brings a synergy to this process that makes everybody think differently, and the cabinet he's put together is a cabinet that appears to be as vigorous as I think I've been the last 6 years in opposing these out-of-control regulators on power electric bills that in our state was sort of ground zero, where the average electric bill would have doubled in 10 or 12 years if the Obama policies had been allowed to stand, or the waters of the U.S. that would have put the EPA in charge of potentially every building permit in America and everything else that involves water. It's a real opportunity, I think, to get back to common sense, and I think the president-elect is going to lead us in that direction.
It's refreshing. Senator, what's your reaction when you see the mainstream media spend hours upon hours criticizing the people that the president-elect has picked for his cabinet, who in my opinion he's picking people who've been successful at everything they've done in their life. Why would we not want those people on our side? And yet that doesn't seem to be acceptable to the left and to the mainstream media.
Well, I think if the truth is, if it wasn't that, it would be something else. They would be finding something else that day to criticize the administration about, from whether his residence in New York is a problem for New York or an opportunity for New York, to everything else. I do think that when you look at this cabinet, not only is it the most conservative cabinet in my lifetime, in my view, but it's also the most accomplished cabinet in my lifetime. Now, in any cabinet, you could probably go and find one person or two people that would sort of meet the standard of personal success and ability that these individuals have brought to what they do. But I'm very excited about what can happen in these departments and to our economy and for families because of the kind of people the president's surrounding himself with. In the campaign, I kept saying when this topic would come up, well, what do we really know about a Trump administration? I said, what we know for sure is the person he chose to be vice president and the list of people out there that he said would be the kind of people that he would appoint to the Supreme Court. And I think he's followed through with that same kind of approach to who's going to help manage the rest of the government and protect our country, and those are really important things.
One of the issues I want to get to in a minute is what's coming up in the new Senate. But first, in terms of these nominations, do you see a battle brewing here for Rex Tillerson or another one of the cabinet nominees? Do you think they're going to get tied up in the Senate by Chuck Schumer?
I think there'll be a battle or two or three, maybe even 4 or 5. But there's a limit to what the Democrats can determine that they're going to do to try to stop these people from being confirmed. Remember, confirmation is now at 51 votes, and it's just really a determination at some point of the majority leader, Mitch McConnell, to decide to run the clock if necessary. If there's a delay in a tactic in motion, we should just stay here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week until the other side realizes that we're not going to let them delay. If they don't have the votes to defeat a cabinet nominee, and I think they will not have, we need to just get to that sooner rather than later, and let the new president put people in place that can do things in the government that the voters have just said they'd like to see done, and I think that will happen. And there'll be, it could be the Secretary of Labor, it could be the new EPA director who has challenged every rule that would have been the Attorney General of Oklahoma that would have been devastating to Oklahoma and Missouri, and in my view, virtually every other state in the country. And they might create that challenge, but unless they find out something that is not on the record right now, I think these people will all be confirmed, and I have confidence that they'll do the kind of job that the country needs to have done.
Great news. We're talking to Missouri Senator Roy Blunt. What about the inauguration team that you put together?
Well, I'm chairing the inauguration. It's always a responsibility of the chairman of the Rules Committee, and so we've been working on this for some time, but now we're having a chance to work with the president's inaugural committee that, frankly, is responsible for everything that doesn't happen at the Capitol, and remembering that what happens at the Capitol is the one thing that has to happen. It is the one constitutional moment where the Congress, the current president, the president-elect, the Supreme Court, the three branches of government come together, and we do something that we've been doing longer than anybody else in the world today or in the history of the world, which is passing the power of government from one group to another, and often that is done at a time where people think that the people taking over the government are going to run it much differently than they do. Reagan said, I think it was in his second inauguration, that what we do here today is both commonplace and miraculous. And one of the miracles is that since 1801, it's been done over and over again, and 1801. A lot of historians remember. I'm a frustrated history teacher, not a lawyer, but historians for a long time have said that was the first election where Jefferson became president and Adams left the White House, where a group of people controlling the government willingly gave control to somebody that they thought would run the country, the government, in a dramatically different way, and they didn't gladly give it up, but they willingly gave it up.
Right.
John Adams didn't even stay for the inauguration of Jefferson. He left town and didn't stay. But the point is that this thing began to become something that in America just happened every 4 years, whether the people leaving the presidency felt good about their predecessor or not. It was the example of democracy that we set for the world, and it is, as Reagan said, a miraculous thing because of that, and about 42 million people will watch it live, and other people will watch it in lots of other ways over the days that follow January the 20th.
Well, many of us are looking forward to it. In terms of the new Senate, when you guys get sworn in, I talked to a congressman the other day who said that they felt on the House side that how quickly they could get things done maybe slowed down a little bit by how long confirmation hearings take in the Senate. But do you guys have an agenda in mind to try to help this president push in the first 100 or 200 days?
I think our first agenda will be, one, to help the president populate the government and take over the government, and there's no House role there. So,
right.
The one thing that we have to do that they don't have any role in is the personnel business of putting people literally in charge of the government. So that does slow down some, but we will quickly get to a place where Obamacare is no longer going to be the law of the land. It'll be on some kind of clock that says this is going away, and it will all go away by a day certain, and then we'll have that time to work to replace it one piece at a time. I don't think there'll be a 1,500-page Republican replacement for a 2,700-page Obamacare bill, but one bill at a time, and by the time that clock is run, hopefully we'll have people back in control of their health care with lots of options and lots of choices. Again, that can happen, and repeal can happen with 51 votes in the Senate. These personnel issues happen, and of course there's that Supreme Court vacancy to fill, which you and I have talked about before, and may have been the most focusing single thing that happened in both the presidential campaign and the particularly Senate campaigns, knowing that vacancy was there it was going to be filled by the next president and the next Senate, and that brought, I think, a unique focus that wouldn't have been there if that vacancy had been filled by the last president and the last Senate. And so those things will all happen, and all happen within the first 4 or 5 months of the presidency, and not to mention the part that Congress can play in repealing regulations that the president can't repeal by himself, and we'll be doing that, something called the Congressional Review Act. We don't have access to everything President Obama did, but we do have access to every rule and regulation that was issued since about the 1st of June last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, including, I was told, this may be off the subject, the president is trying to use a 1953 law to restrict drilling. That's something Congress can affect, correct?
I believe so, and I believe this last, they've come up with a late decision on a potential rule on fracking that appears to have no real relationship to the facts on the table or what they said the rule would look like, or the determination that this was not a dangerous thing to do just 3 or 4 months ago. Now they've decided, well, it could be dangerous, so we're going to say in the rule that this creates danger. That's the kind of thing we need to get our arms around and our heads together with the House and be sure that we undo what needs to be reversed here before we move forward to look at any new rules of any kind.
Senator, I had a conversation on this show earlier today about the cuts that have taken place in the military and how Donald Trump has said he's going to change a lot of that. What, in your opinion, needs to happen in the next year or 2 years to rebuild our military?
Well, I do think the number one job of the federal government is to defend the country, and we need to keep sight of that. We also need to look at every way that you can to help improve the military procurement, the bidding process, the report that was out recently of things at the Pentagon that, if done differently, could save a lot of money. So that's important to do that. But we have to prioritize it really in a really dangerous time, defending the country and being sure that people who are ready to fight for us never get in a fair fight. We always want them to be in an unfair fight where they have every advantage possible, and being sure that the weapon systems, the equipment, the supply lines, all of those things are second to none, and what they need in a world right now. Because we see, I'm on the Intelligence Committee, and the 2 and 3 times we meet every single week are filled with specific instances of that overall sense that there are more threats from more direction than ever before.
Senator Roy Blunt, again, Merry Christmas to you and your family, and thank you so much for giving us some time today.
Hey, same to you. Thanks for what you do day after day talking about these important issues, and I look forward to being with you in the studio again before too long.
Very good, sir. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Yep. Appreciate the Senator giving us some time today.